Three men, one night, and a series of unfortunate choices. One man is waiting in the rafters for a flood that isn't coming. Another is waiting outside a window for a kiss he will regret forever. And the third is safe in bed with a woman who isn't his wife. When these three plots finally collide in the dark, the result is a twisted mystery involving a misplaced kiss, a thunderous noise, and a very painful wake-up call. Welcome to the Miller's Tale. So the knight finishes his tale, and let me tell you, everyone in the group loves it. Young and old alike, they all agree it was a noble story, one worth remembering. The host is laughing, feeling good. He looks around and says, "This is going well." The bag is open now. Who's next? Sir Monk, see if you can match the knight's story. But then the miller interrupts. Now you have to understand, the miller is completely drunk. He's so pale from the ale that he can barely sit on his horse. He won't take off his hood or his hat, and he definitely isn't in the mood to be polite to anyone. He starts yelling in this rough, pilot-like voice. He swears by blood and bones, shouting, "I've got a noble tale for the occasion. I'll pay back the night with this one." The host sees clearly that the man is wasted. He says, "Robin, wait, my dear brother. Let someone better go first. Let's do this properly." "By God's soul, I will not," the miller snaps back. "I'll speak or I'm leaving right now." So the host just throws up his hands. "Fine, tell your story. Go to the devil, you're a fool and your wits are gone." "Now listen here," the miller says to everyone, "but first I'm making a protest. I am drunk, I know it by the sound of my own voice. So if I say something wrong, blame the ale of Southwark, not me. I'm going to tell you a story about a carpenter and his wife and how a student made a fool of him." Well, the reeve speaks up immediately. He's a carpenter himself, you see. He shouts, "Shut your mouth. It's a sin and a folly to slander a man and bring a wife into bad fame." But the drunken miller just shoots back. "Dear brother Oswald," he says, "if you don't have a wife, you can't be a cuckold. I'm not saying you are one, but there are plenty of good wives out there. Why are you so angry? I have a wife too. But a husband shouldn't be too inquisitive about God's secrets or his wife's secrets. As long as he finds God's plenty there, he doesn't need to ask about the rest." The miller wouldn't stop for anyone. He told his rude tale in his own way. And honestly, I think I have to repeat it here just as he said it. So if you're a gentle person, please don't think I'm speaking with evil intent. I just have to rehearse their stories for better or worse. If you don't want to hear it, turn the page and choose another tale. But don't blame me if you choose wrong. The miller is a churl and so is the reeve, and they told some pretty wild stories. So consider yourself warned, don't take a joke too seriously. Here begins the tale. Once upon a time, dwelling in Oxford, there was a rich guy. A bit of a miser, he took in boarders and by trade he was a carpenter. Now living with him was a poor scholar. This student had learned the arts, but his real passion was astrology. He knew how to predict the weather, when it would rain or be dry, if you asked him at the right hours. This clerk was named Hendy Nicholas, and he was sly. He knew all about secret love and how to be discreet. He looked as meek as a maiden, but don't let that fool you. He had a room in that boarding house all to himself. It was decorated beautifully with sweet herbs, and he smelled as sweet as licorice or ginger. He had his books, his astrolabe for measuring the stars, and counting stones all laid out neatly on shelves near his bed. His closet was covered with a red cloth, and lying there was a gay harp. At night, he played it so sweetly that the whole room rang with the sound. He would sing Angelus ad Virginem, and after that, the King's Note. His throat was blessed, let me tell you. And that's how this sweet clerk spent his time, living off his friends and his rent. Now this carpenter had recently married a new wife. And he loved her more than his own life. She was 18 years old. He was jealous, though. He kept her narrowly in a cage because she was wild and young and he was old. He thought he was likely to be cheated on. He was a simple man, didn't know his Cato, which says a man should marry someone like himself. But he had fallen into the snare, so he just had to deal with it. She was fair, this young wife. Her body was as slim and neat as a weasel. She wore a belt of striped silk and an apron as white as morning milk. Her smock was white and embroidered with coal-black silk on the collar, inside and out. The ribbons on her white head kerchief matched her collar. She wore a broad silk headband set high. And certainly she had a wandering eye. Her eyebrows were plucked thin and arched, black as a sloe berry. She was more pleasant to look at than a pear tree in bloom, and softer than the wool of a sheep. Hanging from her belt was a leather purse with silk tassels and brass pearls. Honestly, if you searched the whole world, you wouldn't find a brighter little doll. Her color shone brighter than a newly minted gold coins. And she could sing as loud and lively as a swallow sitting on a barn. She could skip and play like a kid or a calf following its mother. Her mouth was as sweet as honey or a hoard of apples laid in hay. She was skittish like a young colt, tall and upright. On her collar, she wore a brooch as big as a shield's boss. She was a primrose, a pig's eye, a real prize for any lord to have in his bed or any good yeoman to wed. So it happened one day that this Hendy Nicholas began to flirt and play with this young wife while her husband was away at Oseni. Students are subtle and clever, you know. He grabbed her intimately and said, "Unless I have my will with you, I'll die for secret love of you, sweetheart." He held her fast and said, "Love me now or I'll die, so God save me." She sprang away like a colt in a frame. She turned her head and said, "I will not kiss you by my faiths. Let me go, Nicholas, or I'll scream, 'Help, take your hands off me.'" But Nicholas cried for mercy and spoke so charmingly that she finally granted him her love. She swore by St. Thomas of Kent that she would be at his command whenever she could find the time. "My husband is so jealous," she said, "that unless you're very careful and secretive, I know I'm dead." "Don't worry about that," Nicholas said. "A student has wasted his time if he can't trick a carpenter." So they agreed to wait for the right moment. Nicholas patted her playfully, kissed her sweetly, and then took his harp and played a merry tune. Now let's talk about the parish church. Allison went there on a holy day to do her duties. Her forehead shone as bright as day, she had washed it so well. And at that church there was a parish clerk named Absalom. This guy, curly hair that shone like gold and spread out like a fan. A straight part in the middle, his face was red, his eyes gray as a goose. He had fancy carvings on his shoes like St. Paul's windows. He wore red stockings, very neat, and a light blue jacket with thick laces. Over that, a gay white surplice, as fresh as a blossom on a twig. He was a merry lad. He knew how to let blood, cut hair, and shave. He could write legal documents and dance in 20 different ways, kicking his legs to and fro. He played a small fiddle and sang in a high treble voice. He could play the guitar, too. There wasn't a tavern or brewhouse in town he didn't visit to joke with the barmaids. But truth be told, he was a bit squeamish about farting and fastidious in his speech. So this Absalom, lively and gay, goes around with the censer on the holy day, swinging incense at the wives of the parish. And he cast many a loving look at them, especially at the carpenter's wife. To look at her, he thought, was a merry life. If she had been a mouse and he a cat, he would have caught her right then and there. This clerk, this Absalom, has such love-longing that he wouldn't take any offering from the wives. The moon shone bright that night, and Absalom took his guitar. He intended to stay up all night for love. He walked to the carpenter's house a little after the cock crowed and stood by a low window on the bedroom wall. He sang in a gentle, high voice, "Now, dear lady, if it be your will, I pray you have pity on me," and he played his guitar along with it. The carpenter woke up and heard him singing. He turned to his wife and said, "Allison, don't you hear Absalom chanting under our bedroom walls?" She answered, "Yes, God knows, John, I hear him every bit," and that was it. Day after day, this jolly Absalom woos her until he's miserable. He stays awake all night, combs his wide locks, and dresses up. He uses go-betweens and sends gifts. He sings like a nightingale. He sent her spiced wine, mead, ale, and piping hot cakes. He offered her money. Sometimes, to show off his agility, he played the part of Herod on a high stage in a play. But it didn't help. She was in love with Hendy Nicholas. Absalom might as well go whistle. She made a monkey out of him and turned all his earnestness into a joke. The proverb is true, the cunning one nearby makes the one far away unloved. Nicholas was near and Absalom was far. So one Saturday, the carpenter went to Oseni again. Nicholas and Allison agreed that Nicholas should devise a trick to fool the jealous husband. If it worked, she would sleep in his arms all night. Nicholas didn't waste a second. He quietly carried enough food and drink for a day or two into his room. He told Allison to tell her husband if he asked that she didn't know where Nicholas was, that she hadn't seen him all day, and maybe he was sick because he wouldn't answer his door. So Saturday passed, and Nicholas stayed in his room, eating and sleeping or doing whatever he pleased until Sunday at sundown. The simple carpenter began to wonder greatly what was wrong with Nicholas. "I'm afraid," he said, "by St. Thomas, that things aren't right with Nicholas. God forbid he died suddenly. The world is fickle. I saw a corpse carried to church today that I saw working just last Monday." He told his servant, "Go up, call at his door or knock with a stone. See what's happening." The servant went up and banged on the door like a madman's. "What how, Master Nicholas, how can you sleep all day, but not a word?" The servant found a hole low down in the door where the cat used to creep in. He looked deep inside. Finally, he saw him. Nicholas was sitting there, gaping upright as if he were staring at the new moon. The servant ran down and told his master. The carpenter started crossing himself. "Help us, Saint Friedeswide, a man knows little of what will happen to him. This man has fallen into some madness with his astronomy. I always thought this would happen. Men shouldn't know God's secrets. Blessed is the simple man who knows nothing but his beliefs." But he felt sorry for Nicholas. "I'll get a staff and pry up the door," he said. They heaved the door off its hinges. Nicholas sat there as still as stone, looking up at the air. The carpenter thought he was in despair. He grabbed him by the shoulders and shook him hard. Nicholas looked down, awake. "Think on Christ's passion." He started saying a night spell to protect the house from elves and wicked creatures. "Lord Jesus Christ and Saint Benedict, bless this house from every wicked wight." Finally, Nicholas sighed deeply and said, "Alas, shall the whole world be lost so soon?" The carpenter asked, "What are you saying?" Nicholas said, "Fetch me a drink. Then I'll speak to you in private about something that concerns us both." They drank a quart of mighty ale. Then Nicholas shut the door and sat the carpenter down. "John," he said, "swear to me on your truth that you won't betray my secret. This is Christ's secret. If you tell anyone, you are lost. The punishment is that you will go mad." "Nay, Christ forbid," said the simple man. "I'm no blabbermouth. I'll never tell a soul, child or wife." "Now, John," said Nicholas, "I won't lie. I have found in my astrology, looking at the moon, that next Monday, a rain will fall so wild that Noah's flood will be nothing compared to it. The whole world will drown in less than an hour." "Alas, my wife," cried the carpenter, "will she drown?" Is there no remedy? Yes, thank God, said Nicholas, if you do exactly what I say. You can't use your own judgment. Solomon said, work by counsel and you won't regret it. I will save her and you and me. But we have to hurry. Go get a kneading trough or a brewing tub for each of us. Make sure they are large enough to float in. Put enough food in them for one day. The water will go down by the next morning, but don't tell your servant Robin or your maid Gills. I can't save them. Don't ask why, it's God's secret. He continued, hang these 3 tubs high in the roof so no one sees. Put an axe in each so we can cut the ropes when the water comes. Then we can break through the gable and float out over the stable into the garden. We'll float as merry as the white duck after her drake. But be warned, once we are in the tubs, no one can speak a word. Not a whisper, we must be in prayer. You and your wife must hang far apart so there is no sin between you. Go now, Nicholas said. I have to get back to my studies. The silly carpenter went away, saying alas and well a day. He told his wife the secret. She knew exactly what was going on, but she pretended to be terrified. Help us escape, she cried. I am your true wife, save us. This carpenter began to shake. He really thought he could see the new flood coming to drown his dear Allison. He groaned. He went and got the tubs, brought them in secretly, and hung them in the roofs. He made 3 ladders. He put bread, cheese, and good ale in the tubs. Then he sent his servants to London on business. On Monday night, he shut the door and prepared everything. They climbed up the ladders into the tubs. They sat there for a while. Pater Noster, quiet, said Nicholas. Quiet, said John. Quiet, said Allison. The carpenter said his prayers and sat still, waiting to hear the rain. Eventually, the dead sleep of exhaustion fell on him around curfew time. He groaned in his sleep and started snoring. Quietly, Nicholas stalked down the ladder. Allison followed softly. Without another word, they went to the carpenter's bed. And there was the revel and the melody. They lay there in mirth and solace until the church bells rang for morning service. Now remember Absalom, the parish clerk who was so lovesick. He was at Oseni on Monday, enjoying himself. He asked a monk quietly about John the carpenter. The monk said, I haven't seen him since Saturday. I think he went to the abbey for timber, or maybe he's at his house. I don't know for sure. Absalom felt a surge of hope. Great, he thought. I haven't seen him stirring. I'll go to his window at cockcrow and knock. I'll tell Allison all my love longings. At the very least, I'll get a kiss. My mouth has been itching all day, that's a sign. So up rose this jolly lover Absalom. He dressed up perfectly. He chewed cardamom and licorice to smell sweet. He put a true love leaf under his tongue for good luck. He went to the carpenter's house and stood under the window. It was low, reaching only to his chest. He coughed softly. What are you doing, honeycomb, sweet Allison? My fair bird, my sweet cinnamon, wake up and speak to me. I sweat for your love, I mourn like a lamb for the teat. Allison answered from the window, go away, you fools. I love another much better than you, by Jesus, Absalom. Go away or I'll throw a stone. Alas, said Absalom, is true love treated so badly? Then kiss me at least, since it can't be better, for Jesus' love and for my love. Will you go away if I do? She asked. Yes, certainly, sweetheart, said Absalom. Then get ready, she said, I'm coming. She whispered to Nicholas, be quiet, you're going to laugh your fill. Absalom got down on his knees. I am a lord, he thought. I hope there is more to come. She undid the window quickly. Have done, she said. Come on, hurry, before the neighbors see. Absalom wiped his mouth dry. It was pitch black outside. She stuck her rear end out the window. And Absalom, well, he didn't know better. He kissed her naked backside with great enthusiasm. Then he stopped, he jumped back, he knew something was wrong. A woman doesn't have a beard, he had felt something rough and hairy. Fie, alas, what have I done, he cried. Tee-hee, she laughed and slammed the window shut. Absalom walked away at a sorry pace. A beard, said Hendy Nicholas inside. By God, this game is going well. Poor Absalom heard every word, he bit his lip in anger. I'll pay you back, he muttered. I give my soul to Satan if I don't get revenge for this insult. Alas, that I was so deceived. His hot love was cold and quenched, he didn't care a straw for love anymore. He cried like a beaten child. He walked softly across the street to a blacksmith named Gervais, who was busy sharpening plow parts. Undo the door, Gervais, he said. Who's there? It's me, Absalom. Absalom, by Christ's sweet tree, why are you up so early? What ails you? Maybe some gay girl has got you running around. The smith laughed. Absalom didn't care about his jokes. He said, Friend, lend me that hot coulter, that iron plow blade in the chimney. I have a use for it, I'll bring it right back. Sure, said Gervais, if it were gold, I'd lend it to you. Absalom caught the hot iron by the cold handle and stole out the door. He went back to the carpenter's wall. He coughed first and knocked on the window just like before. Allison answered, Who is there? I bet it's a thief. No, he said, God knows, my sweet love, it's your Absalom. I've brought you a gold ring, my mother gave it to me. It's very fine, I'll give it to you for a kiss. Now Nicholas had gotten up to relieve himself. He thought he could improve the joke. He wanted Absalom to kiss his rear end this time. He opened the window hastily and stuck his backside out all the way to the haunch bone. Absalom said, Speak, sweet bird, I don't know where you are. At that moment, Nicholas let fly a fart. It was as loud as a thunderclap. Absalom was nearly blinded by the force of it. But he was ready with his hot iron. He smote Nicholas right in the middle of his backside. The skin burned off a hand's breadth around. The hot iron scorched his bottom so badly that Nicholas thought he would die of pain. He screamed like a madman, Help, water, water, for God's heart. The carpenter up in the roof woke up with a start. He heard someone screaming, Water. Alas, he thought, here comes Noah's flood. He sat up and without a word, swung his axe and cut the cord in two. Down went everything. He didn't stop until he hit the floor. He lay there in a swoon. Allison and Nicholas ran into the street shouting, Help. Help. The neighbors, small and great, ran in to stare at the man lying pale and wan on the floor. He had broken his arm in the falls. But he had to stand to his own harm, because when he tried to speak, he was shouted down by Nicholas and Allison. They told everyone he was crazy. They said he was so afraid of Noah's flood that he bought 3 tubs and hung them in the roof for company. The people laughed at his fantasy. They looked up at the roof and turned all his pain into a joke. No matter what the carpenter said, no one listened. They swore he was mad. Every student in town sided with Nicholas, saying, The man is crazy, my dear brother. And everyone laughed at the strife. So the carpenter's wife was enjoyed, despite all his guarding and jealousy. Absalom kissed her nether eye, and Nicholas got his bottom scalded. And that, my friends, is the tale. God save the company. And so we turn the page on the miller and his mischief. If you found a moment of peace in this reading, please leave a like to mark your place. Our library is growing, and many more characters are waiting to speak. Subscribe to open the next chapter with us. Until then, read well.